Hi, everybody. This is Rabbi Ari Goldstein, and I'm so happy to have with me Jodi Handin Goldman here on the, as you can see her to my right, your left on the screen. Jodi has been a member of Temple Beth Shalom for longer than I have been here. That is for sure, probably twice as long as I've been here. She's one of our oldest. She, along with her husband Bruce and their kids, Samantha and Zach, they are one of the oldest, not oldest by age, but oldest in terms of the longest families in our congregation still today. And so I'm so appreciative that you're on this call, Jodi. And I just want you to know that, like, this is just to hear your story. There's no pressure. There's no, it needs to be a certain way. There's nothing about this which there's parameters for how it needs to be. It's just, we just want to hear your story and just learn about you a little bit more and learn about what it was like for you, what your Jewish story is, growing up here in Anne Arundel County, for that matter, what it was like, learning, what your Jewish experiences at home, Israel. These are the types of things we're going to talk about. But we'll see how it goes. If we end up talking about Mahjong, I'm not going to be a very good conversationalist. I don't know much about it, but so
I'll teach you.
What do we do? So we started Westbury, Long Island.
Sure.
So tell me about it. What was it like? What was your synagogue like growing up?
Old Westbury Hebrew congregation.
Yeah.
A conservative synagogue on massive acreage. I have memories of leaving the sanctuary with my brother and walking to the fields where horses were growing. I have lots of memories of sitting next to my father, Harold, and holding his tallis and the little fringes and braiding them and playing with them.
I mean, like during services, you would sit together and you would be just braiding his tallis fringes.
Yeah.
Harold, that's so sweet. It's a great memory.
Yeah, Mitchell and Jodi. And not just the two of us, but the other children in the congregation. There would be breaks, and we would go outside. And
it was a conservative synagogue?
Yes, conservative.
Uh-huh.
Conservative. I received my religious education there. Yeah. Hebrew school, Sunday school, and Saturdays on junior congregation. The people on the street, Sharon Lane, they would carpool, and I would be there on Saturdays doing the services just for the kids.
Oh, so you led the services?
No, I didn't. We didn't lead them.
Oh, you were participating. They did them for the
yes.
services.
The teachers of the religious school would hold a separate service just for the kids,
right, from the main,
like a youth group congregation.
I understand.
So I spent 3 days out of the week at Old Westbury Hebrew congregation.
Do you remember?
What was
as
Hebrew
a mom now? Like? What was Hebrew school like? What was it like in those classrooms? Was it just very stern, or was it?
No, not at all. As a mom now, I'm looking back on it. We went to public school, and at Powell's Lane Elementary School, there was a big yellow school bus that would pick up the Jewish children and transport us every Wednesday to Old Westbury Hebrew congregation.
So you had that was a big Jewish community where you grew up.
Yes.
Wow.
I remember there was a major blackout being in the religious school classroom. It was in the 60s, or maybe, in the 60s, and there was a blackout, and it was time for the buses to pick us up, and all the buses lined up facing the building to the classrooms and flashed their headlights into our classroom so we can finish the class that day.
Oh, wow.
I have wonderful, wonderful memories, Rabbi, of Old Westbury Hebrew congregation. Maura Pector. Oh my gosh, I remember her name, Maura Pector.
Yeah.
We would do search finding of the Hebrew word. We turn to page 73 and find the word
Shabbat. Right.
Or Shabbat.
Right.
And it was so competitive. Like I always wanted to be the first one to raise my hand.
That's great. So, and I mean, I can totally imagine the type of synagogue you grew up in. Like I can picture it so easily. I can picture that type of synagogue.
It's a beautiful building. And as an adult, Bruce and I traveled to Long Island a couple of years ago to attend a wedding. Uh-huh. And I remember saying to him, so what do you want to do when we don't have wedding functions to go to? And I said, I'll be your best friend. Please schlep with me to Old Westbury, to my old congregation. And I went back as an adult. And it was just going down memory lane. It was a great feeling.
Are you in touch with any of those fellow classmates?
One girl from my childhood,
Oh, yeah.
Amy Hoffman Piep, my childhood friend.
Did she? Did you guys do any kind of crazy antics or you know, like you remember doing any, you know, silly childish things at the synagogue? Tell me.
Yes,
Tell
I
me,
can't
tell me.
believe this. I haven't told anybody.
Okay, good.
I didn't study for my vocabulary test. And I asked Amy, I need help.
Yeah.
And Amy put her machberet on the side of the desk.
By the way,
She was to my
machberet's a
left.
notebook. Good job
Yes.
using that Hebrew.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you the words I remember.
Okay.
And she let me copy from her. And we had the same exact mistakes. And Maura Pector schlepped us to the principal's office, and we got in trouble.
Oh my God. How did
And
Harold?
I remember.
How did Harold Handin feel about that?
I don't remember, Rabbi, but I remember being protective of my friend Amy. And I said, please don't let her get in trouble. It really wasn't her fault. I'm the one who didn't study, and she let me copy from her.
And what was this, like 5th or 6th grade?
Right before your bat mitzvah prepreration, so
Yeah.
perhaps
Oh,
6th
earlier.
or 7th.
Yeah. Oh, that's such sweet. What was it like in your home growing up? Is it like, do you remember Jewish symbols and traditions and stuff like that in your home?
It was a kosher style home, and we often went to my father's mother, Grandma Rose Handin, in Middle Village, Queens, for Pesach and for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Hanukkah. And Middle Village, Queens is a very unique place, not only to live, to grow up, and to be a visiting granddaughter on a regular basis. I think, Rabbi, that's where I have my foundation of my Judaism, my roots, my values, and my ethics.
But from your grandmother.
From my Grandma Rose Handin,
Right.
my father's father.
And
My father's mother, pardon
right,
me,
it's
my
because
mother's
she-
mother.
because she-
My father's mother.
Because you see yourself in her, you see yourself molded to some degree in her image when you think about yourself as a Jew.
Grandma Rose made challahs every Shabbat and put them on her windowsill. Grandma Rose had a sewing machine in her home and was an excellent seamstress, tailor. And Grandma Rose would make suits for the bar mitzvah boys in the Middle Village community.
Oh my God.
Those boys that couldn't afford to purchase
Wow.
a suit.
That's amazing.
And Middle Village is just special. It's just a special place. 3 generations of people living there. The great-grandparents, my grandparents, my father, and then my brother Mitchell and I coming. I can remember every Sunday going to Metropolitan Avenue to the bakery, begins with a K, Kubo's Bakery. And, you know, you can't go to Grandma's house empty-handed. And we would go to Metropolitan Avenue to the bakery and get a babka or rugelach in those white boxes with the red and white string that you would wrap this way and then you would wrap this way. And as an adult, I've met 2 women who also have grandmas that come from Middle Village. And I'm thinking that our paths could have crossed on Sundays on Metropolitan Avenue
At that bakery.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
So it wasn't a specific lesson that they set out to teach us. They just lived by example. And through osmosis, they set the tone for us. And to this day, as a 65-year-old American Jewish woman, married with children, with a son-in-law, a daughter-in-law, now 2 grandchildren.
Did you say a son-in-law, daughter-in-law?
I do not call them son-in-law or daughter-in-law. Daniel is my son-in-law, and Erica is my daughter-in-law.
That's so sweet.
I'm blessed. I am
Yes,
very
you
blessed.
By the way, remind me again, how many grandkids do you have?
Remind you? Well, we have Rhodes, who lives here in Annapolis,
Yep.
Zachary and Erica's boy. He's almost 3.
Uh-huh.
And Samantha Rose and
No,
Daniel.
oh, she has, you said Samantha Rose, but that's not the name of your granddaughter.
No. Samantha and
Right.
her husband Daniel,
Yep.
April 6th, just gave birth to a nice, healthy, knock on wood, beautiful baby girl. And her name is Scotty Liat.
Mazel tov.
And Liat is a Hebrew word or name that means you are mine.
Yep. I love it. I love it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
No, I just asked that question just to sneak, to sneak it in. I just want to give you a chance.
Well, thank you.
To kvel a little bit.
You warmed my heart by sneaking that question.
One of the things about you, Jodi, which I just love, is you have such a huge Jewish spirit, that's for sure. But you also have, and neshama, but you also have a knack for using the Yiddish and and you throw in Yiddish and Hebrew words all the time in your day-to-day conversations, which is so endearing to me. Tsuris or Spilkis or whatever it is, you're using those kind of funky Yiddish words. Where did that come from?
That came from my daddy. That came from Harold Handin. He was my Yiddish professor. And I have a love for Yiddish and Yiddishkeit so much that I mentioned before, I've met 2 women in my life from Middle Village.
Yeah.
There's a special woman in my life, Randy Ott. She too was in Florida during my winter seasons in Hollywood, Florida.
Uh-huh.
And we went to a local university to study Yiddish.
Really?
Yes, we did. Every Friday. We took turns every other Friday who would drive. And we had lunch together and would share and repeat the Yiddishkeit that we learned. And often we did Shabbat together.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. But that's really, it's one of my, you for sure, very few people throw around the funky Yiddish expressions like you do. And it's beautiful because it's like Yiddish expressions, even though they are, they are a reflection of the old world, but it also is it is so illustrative of the type of person that you're talking, when they're talking Yiddish with you, you know what it means. It means that they've got this Jewish soul to them, but also that they've got there's a part of them which is anchored in a history, and it's just so I love listening to that when you share your Yiddish.
Thank you for bringing that up. I'm even teaching it to the next generation.
Really?
Our 3-year-old grandson Rhodes.
Yeah.
He now knows what schmutz is.
Schmutz, good. That's
schmutz. I go, Rhodes, come here, come to JoJo. You got schmutz all over your face.
Do you do the lick and then the rub? So to really.
Not during COVID. No.
Nothing would drive me more crazy than when my mother would lick her finger, only then to rub it on my face. It's like, could you start with rubbing, then go to the lick?
Speaking of your mother.
Oh, boy.
Thank you for triggering a beautiful memory of mine.
Oh, good.
Bruce and I traveled to New Orleans to see our nephew Alex at Tulane. Mm-hmm. And even when we travel, I search out my Judaism. And on my own, I took a little trolley and I found the synagogue where your mom and dad are members, mm-hmm. and your father is, what's the proper word?
Emeritus. Rabbi Emeritus.
Rabbi Emeritus. And I made myself known, shiny, and I searched out your mom and dad.
I remember.
During Shabbat services.
I remember.
And I sang your praise.
Thank you.
And it was really very special for me to meet your mom and dad.
Thank you. I mean, and I really appreciate you telling me that, and I do remember, and I remember them telling me about it too. But the bigger thing about it, or the part which really stands out though, is that for you, whenever you travel, it matters to you. I mean, the fact that my parents were there, it was a extra little reason that was kind of meaningful for you. But really, it's you seek out these Jewish institutions and the synagogues when you travel also. Like, it matters to go and see where's the synagogue and where's the old Jewish neighborhood if you were, or where's the Jewish quarter if when you're in Venice or whatever the places are. Speaking of which, like I had a conversation with Anna Greenberg about her experiences in Italy, but you have your own experiences in Jewish Italy also. Tell me a little bit about what that was like.
Okay, just to explain, we know that Bruce is a veterinarian,
Right.
and he attended University of Bologna Veterinary School. And when we married in 1979, 24 hours later, we flew back to Bologna. The first 2 years of our marriage, we lived in Bologna, Italy.
Wow.
And the rabbi came to me in Bologna and invited me to the mikveh. There was a strong Jewish population in Bologna.
Mm-hmm.
I did attend services, Shabbat services, throughout the 2 years of living there. When you asked me last Friday at Temple Beth Shalom at Shabbat services, would you like to be interviewed? You motivated me, and I went home and I took out my travel journal of all my entries of traveling to Israel and to Italy.
Oh my God.
There are so many entries in here that relate to my Judaism. Going back to Italy for one of our anniversaries, I read an entry. Bruce escorted me to the Bologna synagogue. It was my Papi Paul's yurtzeit. I went to say Kaddish. After I said my Kaddish, I left to meet the crowd, my Bolognese friends. There's another entry in here. May I take one time to just read this? Because it involves you.
Me? I'm in your journal?
Pardon?
I'm in your journal?
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you're in my journal. Rosh Hashanah 5778.
Okay.
Thursday, September 21st, 2017.
Yes.
It's the Jewish New Year, and here I am in Bologna, Italy. It's the first time in 26 years that I am not in Temple Beth Shalom in Arnold, Maryland, USA. There are strong, heartfelt pangs for my husband, Bruce, and my children, Zachary and Erica, and Samantha Daniel, and my cousin, Gloria Hesseloff. And I know that Bruce is okay because he is at Rabbi Ari and Rabbi Hannah's house. I don't know if you remember, but we had an international phone call, Bruce and I, for Shana Tova, and wishing each other Happy New Year. I miss you and I love you. And he happened to be at your holiday table.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, that's so sweet. Oh boy, memories.
A lot of memories. And whenever I'm there, whether it be Bologna, I go to the Jewish ghetto in Bologna, I go to the Jewish museum there. I went to a concert there. There's a lot of entries here about, we traveled to Holland. Zachary was on a Holland Cup team. I took myself on a Friday night, went to a beautiful service. It was bittersweet. Prior to arriving and departing the USA, I had to call and give them my passport and my name, and I had to be cleared because there was such security.
That's the way it is everywhere in Europe.
And
everywhere.
To me, it breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart to walk up to the Bologna synagogue and see men and women in the army with guns in their fronts and holding guns in their back. Even today, I came to our Temple Beth Shalom parking.
It's the place we're at right now, unfortunately, though. Yep. It's the place. So tell me, though, speaking of travel, well, I want to ask you about Israel, but before I do, you've traveled a fair amount. Like, what are some of the other places what are some of the synagogues or Jewish institutions you've been to across in the world that were just kind of more interesting because you went and sought them out?
Well, many in Italy, because Italy is dear to my heart.
Right.
In Bologna, in Venice, in Rome, in Milan, in Orvieto, in Pisa, in Perugia. Many people on their list of things to do, number one is churches. No offense to anybody, but my number one are synagogues in the Jewish community.
Yeah, yeah.
Portugal, Holland. I have to reread my journals.
Another,
But it's where-
maybe I'll ask you on so let's talk about Israel. You've been to Israel a couple times, right?
I'm a very fortunate woman. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And you mentioned Anna Greenberg.
Mm-hmm.
When we first moved to town, my parents said, Jodi, join every woman's Jewish organization you can. And Bruce's parents said, find a sign that says Rotary Club or Kiwanis. So I listened to my parents and I joined Hadassah and I met Anna Greenberg, and she has been my mentor and has become a very, very close friend of mine. I served as the Annapolis chapter president of Hadassah, but I'm not answering your question.
No, it's okay.
But the relationship to Hadassah and Anna is that there was a young women's leadership mission, and Anna nominated me to the National Board of Hadassah. 75 women in the USA were nominated, and only 25 were selected. And I was one of the 25. That was my very first trip to Israel, and I thank Anna Greenberg.
And so what year was that? When was that roughly?
Oy vey, my Yiddish.
Oy vey.
1988. Samantha had just been born. They made her a lifetime member in 1988, somewhere in the 1990s.
Okay.
25 women met in New York City on a flight to El Al, and we were treated like queens. We went to all of the Hadassah projects that we as women fundraise for. The hospitals, Hadassah Medical, Ein Kerem, where the Marc Chagall windows are, dinners, dances, concert.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we got to see the fruits of our labor, of where our hard work and energy. I got to see it, feel it, and touch it.
Totally. But tell me more about Israel. What were some of the things about it that you remember, or in subsequent trips? Like, what are some of the things which have kind of influenced you or had an effect on you?
Well, one thing, I was met Handin family, my dad's side of the family in Ramat Gan, and that was lovely. Yeah. Going to their home for dinner, taking out photos, having them escort me for coffee and ice cream.
How many family members do you have?
I have one, two, three, four, five. I believe about 5.
Wow.
And then through Samantha's marriage to Daniel Benjamin Lax, there's more.
Different story.
Right.
That's a different story. But
so there was a trip.
You got 5 family members of your own there.
Yes, in Ramat Gan.
I love Ramat Gan. What about but back to what I was saying before, like are there specific places in Israel which are particularly meaningful for you if you were to go next year or this summer and you had only one place you could go, what would it be? Where is your holy place?
Can I have more than one? Can I go back to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem?
Of course.
Yeah.
My holy place is Tel Aviv too.
Tel Aviv, I love the beaches. I love the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tel Aviv represents for me just being Jewish without necessarily the religion. It's just about being the people of Israel, the Jewish people, and not the Jewish faith. And that's why I love it.
The Jewish people.
It's the Jewish people.
Speaking of the Jewish people, my entry, June 2014, going to Israel, Eretz Yisrael, with Vicki Tracton Schwartz, Roberta Tracton Ziv, Amanda Leibowitz, was a life changer for me. I left this beautiful country with a new word and a new feeling. Peoplehood, my peoplehood. I'm very blessed to have a friendship with my girlfriend, Vicki. You met her husband, Rob Schwartz, the man who is behind the scenes of the documentary of Menachem Begin.
Yep.
My friend Vicki serves on the Jewish Agency Board and extended an invite for me to join her during she flies to Israel like I fly to Miami. And I was exposed to her family foundation and the projects that they underwrite. And that took me to places that no Hadassah mission or any mission would ever take me. It was very, very personal.
That is. It's very sweet.
And
Very
then
special.
we traveled back again on a mission with Vicki and Rob.
I can imagine. Wow, I'm touched by it.
And I have a daughter who
Basically,
fell
is
in love
a
with a man
citizen.
in medical school.
Right.
And Samantha was there every time I turned around. She was in Israel visiting Dan.
Yeah, she should. Is she a citizen? If she's not, she should apply for citizenship.
I know that you and Samantha and Dan tried to cross paths one year while you were both in Israel.
I think so, but it didn't work out clearly. But
You're right.
because especially in the summertime, well, not this summer or last summer, but other than that, you can. That's where if you want to find me in the month of July, just look in
That's where you are.
in the state of Israel.
Small world story.
Yeah.
One day, Bruce and I were at the wall in Jerusalem,
Yeah.
and I turn around and I go, Bruce, that's Neil Schechter.
That's another one, by the way.
former-
If you're wondering where someone is in the month of July, Neil, take a look in Jerusalem. Let's go. Tell me about so Arnold. You've been a member of Temple Beth Shalom for a long time.
Since
Obviously,
1991,
1991. So
when
what's
Zachary
that?
started.
Oh, 30 years, right? So, yeah, 30 years. So, what, my guess is that it was because your kids were just born, or maybe Zach was just born, and you wanted to connect with the synagogue. How did you come across this place?
Interesting question.
Mhm.
When we first moved here in 1984, we lived on Spa Road in a rental apartment, catty corner to Congregation Knesset Israel,
Wow.
the Orthodox shul.
Yeah.
And I'm a belonger. I'm a people person. I want to be part of the Jewish community.
Right.
Bruce Goldman and Jodi Goldman that you know, we
Yeah.
joined the Orthodox shul.
Oh my God.
We were very welcomed. We
Of
were
course.
very embraced, very brought in. We were not comfortable with the separate seating.
Yeah. I can imagine.
And we researched and searched things out. And once we had Zachary, we knew where we wanted to go.
I'm so glad.
But it wasn't always called Temple Beth Shalom for us.
What was it called?
I'm a product of the verbiage, the little shul on the prairie.
Little Shul on the Prairie.
The little shul on the prairie. Before you came, and
That's what we
before
were.
all the active work of some of my closest friends today, and the new building that we now call home, we were in very small quarters, Rabbi.
Right. When I first came, we were in trailers,
Yes.
but not.
Yes.
But the older building had already collapsed before I arrived. But this building wasn't here yet. So we were in trailers at the time. I remember that. What do you
And we
remember
all
about the
worked
old sanctuary? Like, what was some of your memories of the old building here?
Well, the old building, that's where our son and our daughter became a bar and bat mitzvah.
Right.
And I remember
Wait,
Bruce
Samantha
and I-
too? Was Samantha bat mitzvah there? I'm not so sure.
The old one, yeah. Zachary was 1998, 90, and Samantha was 3 years later, 2001,
Oh, so then
1998.
definitely.
I remember for Samantha, my dear friend Beth Klavner worked so hard to get the new upholstered chairs, had them delivered and set up before Samantha's bat mitzvah service.
That's awesome. Leave it to Beth.
And we wanted to make sure Zachary's bar mitzvah was in September, and we made a donation to have overall of the air conditioning to make sure the air conditioning system would work.
Mhm.
And Samantha's was in March. It was cold, and we made another donation to make sure that the heating system was working properly.
Yeah, that's another thing about you, which neglected to mention or haven't, but philanthropy has been for you and Bruce. I don't want to make it's not just you, but together, the two of you,
You're right.
you've always embraced this notion of being generous with Jewish institutions. Our synagogue for one, but we're not the exclusive. Other Jewish institutions too. Being generous with Jewish institutions has always been a huge value of yours, hasn't it?
You are 100% correct. Hadassah,
Yeah.
Jewish National Fund.
Yep. These things. I mean,
Yeah, and I want to add.
You regularly are thinking, I'm going to make a contribution. I'm going to make a donation in honor of that. I'm going to make a donation in honor of that. And again, it's like it's just it's like a mantra for you. It's admirable, extraordinary, and it's really part of clearly your father, your mother, but your father clearly communicated this value of supporting Jewish institutions in a most profound way, because it is so deeply rooted in who you are.
And I'd like to tell you how, where, and when it started.
Go ahead.
I'm a product of a 3-generation family business, an Army and Navy sporting goods store in the Bronx, New York.
Uh-huh.
Every summer, every high school vacation and college vacation, I worked at the store, Kingsley, Army and Navy, 388 East Fordham Road. There's a large vestibule. I have memories of my father, Harold Handin, meeting with Orthodox men, Chabad, Lubavitch men, hi-hat men in that vestibule. He would take out pieces of paper with names in English, names in Hebrew. He would write a check, and he would ask the rabbi to make a Misha Beirach prayer for this one, or here's a donation for this. And I learned the word tzedakah from my daddy. And I also learned, he called me pumpkin. It's not the amount of commas and zeros. It's the act of giving.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank my dad, because that value of tzedakah is instilled in my soul.
It's a hugely meaningful and important value, which is so deeply rooted in who you are, and so it's abundantly clear, at least for me, that's really one of the. I mean, but I don't want to say it's Bruce too. You guys work together.
It's the both of us
together. But since you're on the, I'm saying you, but no, when I say you with respect to this, I'm totally talking about Bruce too. But it's
I couldn't do it without him, Rabbi.
Of course. So tell me about
just today. Wait, let me on that tzedakah.
Good.
Just today, I drove to Temple.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to cry. And I handed a little note and a donation to Penny.
Yeah.
In honor of the birth of our new granddaughter,
right.
Scotty Liat Lax.
Right.
And it gives me joy.
Yeah. By the way, for what it's worth, I mean, maybe you know this, but if you don't, I share that one of the, I can't remember who said this, but the concept, and I may not say it absolutely correctly, the quote, but it's how much what you give away is ultimately what your lasting legacy is. When you keep giving, that you create a memory, like a trail of memory when you give away, because people think about you and people recognize, wow, this, a person's generosity. So as a result, really it's what you give ultimately becomes a person's lasting legacy. So you have a long one, that's for sure.
We give because we choose to. And in the same breath, Rabbi, it is my responsibility as an American Jewish woman. Because if we stop giving, Bruce and I, and this couple stops giving, and my crowd stops giving, it is my responsibility to maintain Temple Beth Shalom and keep it growing and thriving, even when I'm not here.
Yeah, well, I agree, but it's not yours alone. But I certainly agree with the sentiment that it's people's responsibility to keep the place, keep the Jewish community strong, no matter what. It's people think about synagogues as if it's what do you get out of it at that moment? And people need to kind of adopt your attitude, which is it's about the value of supporting Jewish institutions, which is so important, and not about, like what you get out of something. You'll sooner or later you get, it comes at different times in different ways, but ultimately the purpose is to support the institution, and then down the line, as a result of supporting the institution, you get a lot out of it. But
and it's not a scoreboard.
no.
And there's a common thread that comes up in the conversation. That so often after your son or daughter becomes a bar mitzvah, bye-bye,
Right.
bye-bye TBS. I'll just go to the United States Naval Academy and I'll go to High Holy Day services there. That's not our mantra.
Yeah, it really isn't. Let me ask you one last question. Tell me about
Yes.
the Goldman. I'm not going to say Handin in this particular case. I'm just going to say Goldman. Tell me about the Goldman home right now. Tell me what's Jewish about your home right now? What's not Jewish? Probably is a better question. But what's Jewish about? Tell me about, like, give me an oral tour of your home right now, like to describe how I might feel that I'm in a Jewish home if I walked in.
Early this morning,
Yeah.
I consciously chose a space of energy and comfort and calmness. And I'm you've been here, I'm sitting in the corner of my living room. Behind me are two pieces of artwork
Oh yeah.
by an artist called Carla Gudian. And I had the opportunity to be on a week of Jewish studies in New York. And one of the days we went to the Jewish Museum, and around the corner was an art gallery. And it was like a scene out of Pretty Woman, where Julia Roberts went down Rodeo Drive and had the cash in her pocket to spend, but those snooty, snotty salespeople judged her when she entered and they wouldn't help her. Well, the same thing happened to me with the representative at the museum gift shop. I was ready to buy, had the cash in my pocket. Yiddish, I had my knippel, my little knippel, what the wife has that the husband doesn't know about.
Right.
Had my stash, my knippel. She would not help me. Upon my return to Arnold, I called Carla Gudian at her gallery in Long Island, New York, told her that her work is not being properly displayed, and I bought these two directly from her. One is Bashert, and well, that one's
Yeah,
Bashert.
and the one above on the other side is Chai.
A high, it's a high note. It's
Right.
a play on words. And they just spoke to me. Also, my
I love
Jewish
the
home-
Bashert.
Bashert. I love Bashert. Bruce is my Bashert. I was supposed to marry him 42 years ago. Also, my grandma Rose Handin went to Israel, and in the 1960s, my brother and I and mommy and daddy, all the grandchildren, we had to go to JFK to welcome Grandma Rose Handin home, and she gives me this gift, 12 postcards, and it meant nothing to me. And these 12 postcards I've schlepped, high school, college, single life, New York, everywhere. Finally, I had an aha moment. I'm taking these postcards, I'm going to map them and frame them. They were the Marc Chagall stained glass windows.
Oh wow.
I called you from the art gallery and said, Rabbi Goldstein, quick, I need a lesson on the stained windows by Marc Chagall. Do I place them in any particular order? The colors? And you helped me.
I can't even
So
remember
that's
that.
I remember all
Right,
my
and that's the
encounters with
connection, of course, to Hadassah for you, because that's the Chagall windows are in the Hadassah Hospital,
And where did Grandma Rose Handin purchase them? In Hadassah Hospital on the main floor in the gift shop.
wow.
Who knew that
Wow.
that would be a part of my life? To the left of me is
Yeah.
also a picture of the Chai, Yivarechecha Adonai.
That's right. That's the
would-
priestly benediction. That's may God bless you and keep you.
Yes. I can remember my rabbi in Old Westbury Hebrew congregation on my bat mitzvah putting his two hands over my head and blessing me. We found this in an art gallery in Centro di Bologna. I schlepped this home.
Oh my God.
What else is here? I'm surrounded by 1, 2, 3 bookshelves of all Jewish books.
Oh my God.
it's who I am.
And you used the word
It's who I
schlep
am,
and
and
knipple already in the last minute and a half or whatever. I mean, that doesn't say enough of what does.
And a lot of women don't know what knipple is. You can't put a knipple under your mattress anymore. It's
That's
2021. You have to invest it.
Oh my God, Jodi, you're such a joy. You are such a joy.
Oh, thank you. Wait, one other thing about my Jewish
Yeah.
home. Almost every doorpost,
Yeah,
there's a mezuzah.
I bet.
Either from our travels together, Bruce and I, or generous gifts from my women friends who know how important it is to me. Oh, and I'm touching, this is a Shema.
Oh yeah, I
I
can see it.
Can
I
you
can
see
see
it?
it. Yeah, yeah.
I treated myself to this on one trip to Israel in Mamilla, the Mamilla shops.
Yep.
And I think the name of the shop was Ahava. And as soon as I mentioned to the shopkeeper that I am a lifetime Hadassah member, give this lady a discount. And they gave me a nice discount.
I'll bet.
So I wear my Shema with pride.
Oh, as you should. Oh, that's a beautiful piece of art too. I love that necklace. But again, as I was saying, Jodi, you are a joy. Like it's a joy to talk with you. And to hear, to see, to study your face as you're sharing these stories, and it's just brightening up and lightening up. It's I can't tell you how it's such a pleasure it is to do this with you. And I know, by the way, that the whole technology thing, it was like it wasn't so easy getting everything set up. So I appreciate how much you and Bruce went to kind of making sure that you could get this set up. But I know that this conversation is going to bring joy to a lot of people when they listen to it. So I am going to stop the recording. But before I do, I just want to say thank you so much. You are amazing.
And may I say thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And thank you for all that you do as the leader of our Temple Beth Shalom congregation. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Shalom.